Hello everyone, it's Amy and welcome back for another craft with me, crafting along with Sonya. So the other night I was watching and Sonya was making like some slides and she was making them from scratch. And I thought, hey, I have a bunch of these slide mounts that I got when we bought a bunch of photo developing equipment for my daughter. And they had these slide mounts in there, and she didn't want them because she doesn't use them. And so I put them in my craft room. I haven't used them, and I thought, how fun would that be? Now, the thing about these is some of them come with this little like dot on them and a little hole on this side. And I thought that when you push them together, that would kind of like click and hold them together, but it doesn't. And then the other ones that I have, when you go to open them up and they don't like open up, they don't open up hard, but they're kind of like sealed. And so when you open them up, it almost sounds like Velcro. And then they have these little notches and little bumps that would fit together. And so I thought, oh, now those are going to clip together when I push them back together. And I push them really hard and everything, but they still don't click together. So I'm not sure how once they put the slide in there, how they click them back together. Maybe they have a special machine or something. But I just glued mine and that works. So, well, we'll find out if it works. Right now it's sitting in a heavy book. But it will once the glue is really dry. And so anyways, I am going to play and make some slides to put in my little book. And so what I thought was, now you can do this with magazines, you can do it with, different kinds of decorative papers, what we're going to do here. And you can just test it, and see if that particular magazine or whatever works. That's why I tested this dictionary to see if it works. But the way that I did it was, excuse me, I found a picture that I liked, and then under the pictures they have a little bit of a description. So I went ahead and I cut that out too. So the first thing I did was I cut the description out. So this just says koalas 28 to 32 inches long. And so I'm just going to cut this in a nice rectangle because I'm going to put this on the bottom of my slide. So then this kind of works like as a little slide, and it also works as, what do they call that? Those little like specimen samples or something like that. So now I've got my little description, and I need to put that somewhere I won't lose it since it's so tiny. Set it over there. And then what I did was I just went ahead and I cut around my picture quite close because I don't want a bunch of this paper around the edges. And I didn't do straight lines because whatever hangs on to our tape, I don't want it to be this just straight line. I want it to be more organic. So I'm just going to kind of cut around them so that I don't have straight lines if I wind up with a little bit of this paper left over. And so we're just going to finish cutting this out. Oh, I forgot to tell you. What I usually do is I take my slide mount that I'm going to use and I hold it over top of the picture to see if that's going to work or not. So, so I should have really taken this to see and put it over here. Now, I could do it this way because he's a little longer that way, but to me, slides go this way. So, and I don't have any plain paper here, and he does fit this way. We just won't get absolutely all of the tree. And even though this might look better, I like it this way. And then I've got the wider spot to put my description on. I could still put the description on there, but then it would be sideways. So, oh, what the heck? We'll do one sideways. Why not? We'll do him up and down. Okay, so let's get rid of the book. And then, so the next step is you get your picture, whatever it is, like I said, out of a magazine, out of a book, out of some scrapbooking paper, and then you just take some packing tape and just pull out a little bit of that. You need enough packing tape that it's going to cover this window with a little bit extra around the edges. And then I'm just going to take my little koala bear and place him face down on the tape in the middle so that I've got tape all the way around the edges. And then I just kind of use the handle of my scissors and just push down on it a little bit in the middle. And I just push it pretty much like in the middle, but you want to kind of burnish it down because you want that ink to stick to the tape, the ink of the koala bears. the picture. And so I just press it down, but you don't want to get to the tape because then it's just going to grab your scissors and you might wreck your picture because the tape might get out of the way. And then what you do is you take it and you put it in a bowl of water. Now, I think warm water works a little bit better. I did one in cold water. It seems to take a little bit longer. But you're just going to stick this in the water and then just let it sit. This one's been sitting for about 10 minutes. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to hold it down on the bottom of your bowl. And you want a nice flat bowl that you can reach right in there. And what I did, as soon as I set it in the water, then I went in and I pressed down all of those edges really good. Because we didn't press them with our scissors, remember? And so then you're just going to kind of roll it around and you'll feel the paper starting to lift off a little bit. Now, you want to take your time on this, and I hope I'm not shaking you too bad. You want to take your time so that you don't get down so far as to rub the ink off that is your picture. So what you have is you have a piece of paper, and then they put ink on one side, and then they put ink on the other side. So what we're doing is, first thing, we're taking off the ink from the other side, just very carefully, and a little bit of the paper. And then as you continue rubbing, then you're taking off more of the paper and more of the paper. And what happens is the only thing that sticks is the ink from the side your picture's on. So we're just going to, and like I said, take your time, because if you rub too hard, you may rub a hole right in your picture. In other words, what we are doing is we're rubbing that paper right off. It balls up and it starts to come off. And now we're starting to see the picture behind. This was all words, and now we're starting to see the picture behind here. And so we're just going to keep rubbing until we get rid of that paper. And you're going to be tempted to want to do it super fast. You're going to be tempted to want to rub a little bit harder. But if you do, you might be disappointed. And especially if you have a picture you're really in love with, really take your time. Use a light hand. Just rub back and forth and rub back and forth. You don't need to rub hard. That paper has softened from being in the water. And so the paper is rolling up. And we're getting to the point where we've gotten rid of, it looks like, well, maybe down here we have a little bit of words right down here. We've gotten rid of all of the words from one side, from the back side of our paper, or whatever, if you use a magazine, whatever's on the back side, picture or whatever. And we're getting down to just paper in, I guess if you would say your paper kind of has layers, we're down to like the bottom layer of the paper. And then we've got our ink. And so we're just going to rub, and you can use circular motions at times, straight back and forth. You want to get the edges, but you want to get them carefully. I'm going a little faster, but I am not really pushing any harder. And so here's what we've got from the back side. We can kind of see it. Let's take it out and see what it looks like. And this is what we have so far on the front side. It's a woolly mammoth. And so now on this you can see quite a bit of yellowish there. That means we still have paper, but you can see here it's more clear and here it's more yellow. And so where it's more clear, that means we've got more paper off. So I can go back in there now and say, okay, I know that I still have too much paper right here. And so I'm going to rub there and try and get that yellowish paper off of there, because that's why I can see the yellow is I'm seeing the paper. If your paper's white, you'd see white. But what I want to really see mostly is just ink left. I know the top of our woolly mammoth had a lot of paper still left. And then I'm going to move my hands out of the way so I can get to the ends. And you do want to hold your tape down so that you don't crinkle it up. but sometimes your fingers are in the way. I do leave a little, there's a little extra tape on each end because that gives me something to hold on to, so I don't cut my tape really small to start with. I probably have at least an inch or so on each end that I'm not going to need, but to me it's worth it to not have to try and hold on a little teeny tiny piece of paper. Okay, I was feeling more, not necessarily sticky, but it's, as I'm trying to roll across it, I'm kind of like, kind of sticking, whatever. I'm not sliding as easily, which means that most of the paper must be gone. You know, you can kind of tell by the feel if you've got the paper there or not. And so this is what it looks like so far. Now we still have quite a bit of paper on each end of that bottom part and a little bit by his tail and his head. So I really kind of want to get that off by his tail. I think I might leave it on the bottom part. It doesn't bother me as much because I could just say, well, he's walking through sand because of the color of my paper. But I did want to get off the tail and off the head a little bit more. It's very hard to get it perfect. The longer you take, the more you can get it. But again, just remember, especially when you start getting to the picture and start getting excited, don't rub it too hard. You don't want to rub your ink off because the ink is the last layer and you can rub that right off. There we go. Now I think that looks pretty good, except maybe a little bit more by his tail. And then we will call it good. And, you know, like I said, just, you know, keep looking and engaging whether you like it or not. Now, when you let this sit out and dry, that paper will dry and you will see it a little bit more even. Oops, we're almost done here. And so there we go. So that's how you get your little film for your film strip. And just quick dry this water up. So we're going to kind of do this quickly. So what you're going to do then is you're just going to, now be careful about drying this with any kind of paper or even any kind of fabric because you'll get lint on there. And so normally I just let them set and dry. I normally do not dry them with anything. And then just take your slide mount, decide where he needs to be, and then cut it down to a little bit bigger than the window, but you want a little bit of an edge on there also. So we're just going to cut it. Whoops, and I cut off a little bit too much. I'm almost going to guarantee you. I got really close to him. I need a little extra to go over the edge. And so see, I'm off center now because I only have just a touch of tape there over the edge. But the way that I can fix that, well, not really. I was going to say I could put more tape on the back, but then it would be sticky on the front to move it over. Okay, so I am going to, okay, once you cut him out, you're going to cut all around him so that he's a little smaller than the frame. And then you are going to take the frame and stick him, because that tape is still sticky on the sticky side. So you're going to just stick that to the frame like that. And then because we have cut him down so there's a little bit of edging on, there's a little bit of edge of the frame around here because we're only going to have a little bit of tape. The tape's going to come to here. That will be frame. The tape will come to the middle of there, to the middle of here, and to the middle of here. And then you can put a little glue around the outside edge. You're going to glue it together. And then you're going to take either baby powder, cornstarch, or mica powder. And makeup is mica powder. And then you are going to just put this on the sticky side, because the sticky side, if you try and put it in your book, is going to stick to something. So you just take a brush and rub something on there. I like the baby powder. Oh, I was just showing you here. Okay, so this is cornstarch, this is mica powder, and this is talcum powder. Baby powder, but this is talcum baby powder. Okay, And so you're just going to brush that on the back so that it's not sticky, because it's still sticky. And then you're going to stick it in a heavy book to dry. And, oh, I just went too far. It's going to look like this. So now I am going to have to upload this into my computer to upload it for you, because I went over 15 minutes. So I'll go ahead and we'll finish that little guy there. But this is what it looks like when it's done. So you can see through it. And it has this one has talcum powder on the back so that it's not sticky anymore. And then what I'm going to do is just take a tiny hole punch. And see, I think I'm going to do it in this corner up here. And I'm going to punch a hole. You don't have to do this, but that way if I want to hang it on something in my book, I can do that. Oh, boy, that really stuck. And so there we go. And now I've got a little hole in it that I can hang things from. And when I punched that, this popped up a little bit. It's not quite dry yet. So I'm going to put that back in the book. Put that on there. And we'll finish our elephant here. All right, so I need to cut it on the middle of here. So I need to cut it right about here, because we need something for the glue to, the glue needs to be on both sides of the slide. You don't just want the glue on the tape and on the slide, because even though we taped this on here, the tape is not going to hold it necessarily in place. If we glue this to the top of the tape, eventually the sticky of the tape will let go and it will just open back up again. So we need to glue the frame to the frame, then it can't go anywhere. So we're just going to cut off some of this. And at the bottom, we need to have frame all the way around the tape. Oh, I can't. Now normally I kind of hold this up and cut it before I put it on. But since I was trying to hurry and just, you know, give you kind of a walkthrough of what we were doing, I didn't cut it before I stuck it on there. So there we go. Now my tape comes out to here. My tape's there. My tape is there. My tape is down here. And my tape is over here. There's not a whole lot there, but we're going to be glued all the way around the other. And there is a little bit on that edge, so once it's dry, it's not going to come apart. So we're just going to put a little bit of glue, and you can use whatever kind of glue. If you have the gel glue from the Dollar Tree, the gel super glue, I think that would probably work really well. I haven't tried it because after I saw Sonya doing these, I just wanted to play with it. So just going to go like that and then close it. Now see, you can see the paper on the back side a little bit is starting to show up even more. As it dries, the paper does show up. So what you can do is let them dry, and if you've got spots where you don't want that paper, stick it back in the paper and rub those places a little bit more. It does have to be wet to do that. Number one, so you don't stick to it, and number two, so that it, you know, that's what softens it to let it come out. And there is our mammoth. He's cute. And then because he's still sticky on the back side, we're just going to take a little bit of, just a little bit of talcum powder. Doesn't need to be a lot. I'm going to stick our little koala bears in the water so I can finish them later. And then I'm just going to use a brush and just brush it around. Make sure that you brush it right onto those corners, right on those edges and the little corners and stuff, because you want to get rid of all of that sticky. You don't want it sticking in your book. If you don't have enough, just add a little bit more, just to make sure that you get it everywhere. Once you really get it everywhere, you can give it a good brush so that it's not too thick. And even though that whitens it up a little bit, it is still see-through. And there we go. There's our woolly mammoth. Now that we've got him this far, we can put his little description on the bottom here. And I just do it with, I just put a little glue on there. And then just center that where you want it. And then I just put a little bit of glue on the top. And the reason that I put the glue on the top is just because this this dictionary is really, really fragile. And so that will just make my paper a little sturdier. I'm afraid that it might really like rip if anything rubs against it if it doesn't have a little bit of protection. And so there we go. So now we've got a slide. Now we've got our little kind of like, what you call it? Specimen slide or whatever. And what I do now is I let this dry for just a few minutes before I stick it in my heavy book between the parchment, because I don't like it to be super wet. And so I'm just going to set that aside for a second and let that dry. And then we will figure out where we want to put him in our book in a little while. And then the other things you can do with that same technique is, like, these are just pictures off of I believe it was like a scrapbooking paper or something. And again, I just put the pictures on the tape, soak them in water, rub the backing off. And then in places where it was still sticky, this one has gold mica powder, which is just gold eyeshadow, like this. As a matter of fact, I think it was this gold right here. And so I just rubbed that on the back so that now it's not sticky at all. And you can see that it was white paper, so you can see in places there is still some white on there. But, and then when you put the mica powder on there, you can see this is the gold right here, and that's just places wherever we rubbed right down to the tape, it got gold. And then I just drew the edges on this, so this looked like, instead of a slide, it looks like a film strip. I just used a marker to draw the edging, and I think we're going to put a piece of this in our little book too, so because I really wanted to do that. So that is what we have for today. And so this video is not going to be up in the morning, that's for sure. But hopefully, since it's not a super long video, maybe it will only take about 10 hours. So be up sometime tonight. Oh, and this one is still not dry. And if I find that the tacky glue doesn't work, then I'll go back in and I'll use that gel super glue, because that's the one I think will really work. But I think that this is going to be just fine. It just hasn't had time to dry. Oh, it just hasn't had time to dry because that's the one we just did. This is the one we did a few minutes ago. Or, I mean, I did a little bit ago. Probably it's been about a half an hour. So it's not dry yet either. And then when I punched it, that lifted it up. So I should punch this one right now before it dries. Now, and these two are a little bit different. This one has the little things on it. This one doesn't. But I think I'll punch a hole in here too. And I could punch a hole in the top and the bottom. Boy, that really, because it's so thick, it really wants to stick on there. But I don't want to worry about trying to get them even, so I'm not going to. But that does give me a hole to stick something in. So I'm going to put these back in my book and let them dry for a while. And then I will come back tomorrow, or well, probably Wednesday, hopefully, and we'll put some of this in our book, and we will put some of this in our book. And then we're going to look through our pages and see what kind of comes next, because I think we need some stenciling, and I think we need some lined pages, and mostly because the book is getting super thick, so it's to the point where I think we have almost enough decorative add-ins, and now we need some places to write so that we don't make it too fat, and we'll have all of our pages done. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. I really have fun making these, so I hope if you make them that you have fun too. Thanks again for stopping by. I really do appreciate it, and I hope that you all have an outstanding day. Bye-bye.